Welcome to Right on Track, a songwriting podcast. Thanks to Tone for tuning in. I'm Demi Michelle Schwartz, and I'm thrilled you're joining me on my songwriting journey. So kick back and relax, don't fall flat, and remember, stay right on track. Hello, welcome back to another episode of Right on Track. I am so excited because today I am joined by one of the sweetest artists out there, Matteson Gregory. Hey girl.
Hey, how are you?
I'm fantastic. How are you?
I'm good. I'm just really excited to be on this show. I love the whole aspect of what you're doing and everything. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm just so excited to be here with you and everything. This is awesome.
It definitely is awesome, and I was so excited when you reached out about being on, and you had incredible episode suggestions, one of which is confidence, and when I saw that one, I immediately was like, yes, that's it. So we're going to be talking all about confidence today, but before we dive into that, would you like to share with everybody a little bit about yourself and how you got into music?
Yeah, of course. My name is Matteson Gregory, and I'm a pop singer-songwriter. As far as writing and that goes, I mean, I've been doing music for forever. I would do karaoke parties at my grandparents' house, and my dad was in a lot of bands when I was growing up. So music was definitely like something that was always like a presence in my life. I think when I was around 12, that's when I learned playing guitar, and I started writing songs. And I just kind of kept doing gigs throughout then around my area, around the area that I live in, which is Missouri. And for the past like 3-4 years, 3-4 years ago, I started releasing music, and I've just kept going ever since. So that's a little bit about me.
That's fantastic. And I didn't know that you lived in Missouri. My sister is actually moving there. We're moving her next week. So
Really?
It'd be so cool if we can meet up. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that would be the coolest thing. Where is she moving in Missouri?
Kirksville.
I don't know. I'm like in like Southwest Missouri. Is that Southwest?
Okay. Yeah, I'll definitely look into it. Maybe we can meet somewhere in the middle in St. Louis or something.
Yeah, that'd be kind of cool. Yeah. Oh, wow. That is so cool.
Yep. Well, look at that. Okay, so fantastic. Thank you so much for introducing yourself, and let's dive into this awesome conversation we're going to have. So I know you found a very fantastic quote by Ed Sheeran. Would you like to read that?
Yes. The quote I came across from Ed Sheeran is, "I've never really been a confident person, except from a musical standpoint. I had to push myself early on, but it got easier with each gig."
I love this quote, and I think the part that really stands out to me is about pushing yourself early on. I think that, especially with music, we really have to push ourselves in everything that we do to maintain that momentum and confidence. So yeah, I completely agree with what Ed is saying here.
Oh yeah, for sure. It's a struggle to first get started. I feel like, I always had a hard time like being confident with like getting started to do the music thing. But like, I feel like with each gig I do, and just the more I push myself, you slowly become more confident in yourself, because I think you are just like, I'm going to do this. I'd rather try and know than not try and at all, if that makes sense.
I absolutely love that. Yes, that definitely does make sense. And I also like what you said about, it happens over time. Nobody's going to wake up one day and have all the confidence in the world to pursue music. It's something that we have to do over time. And so, was there a specific moment for you when you felt that confidence truly come for the first time, or is it still something that's gradual for you?
I think, there are days where I feel like more confident than others. I think that's just kind of with everybody too. As far as like music wise, I remember when I was like, my confidence was kind of shot for music when I was around the age of like 13. I did this show, and it was called The Gong Show, and like I was actually gonged off stage for singing at the age of 13.
That's terrible.
Yeah. And so I was just completely, I was broken. I was like, okay, why am I even trying to do this? But I think I kind of took it as I was like, you know what? I know I'm at least good. Maybe I can be better, you know. So I started getting involved with like choirs and like learning more about voice and music theory and stuff like that. I kind of took it as a way, I'm like, okay, maybe I'll kind of learn more about this and try to better my abilities. But really, when, like, you know, that was still kind of a struggle still. And then when I was a senior in high school, I had the chance to sing one of my original songs in front of the school, and just, it was probably the most, I will never forget that, because I was singing this song and I wasn't popular. I was very shy, like, so there's this girl coming out on the middle of the basketball like court, where like the gymnasium where we did our assemblies and stuff, and I just started singing, and people like were like clapping and they stood up for me, and I just stood there in awe. And I think that was a moment where I was like, you know what, I can do this. I'm like, I can do this. And I'll never forget that moment. I think that's a moment that stands out a lot for me, that definitely helped me build my confidence up for sure.
Thank you so much for sharing all of that. And I absolutely love how you took what happened when you were 13 as a sort of motivator and you didn't let that stop you, because there are definitely a lot of people out there who would just give up after something like that. And, you know, when I started out, I wasn't that great either. I never got the solos that I auditioned for choir. I never won any of the awards or anything. So I was like the same way, but I wanted to not only prove to myself but to everybody else that I had what it took to get there. And so I think like your story when you were a senior in high school, doing that and actually seeing people applaud you and make you feel that, hey, I actually can do this, is just truly incredible.
Thank you. Yeah. No, I think it's definitely, it's, you know, and I think music is, it's always going to be subjective. You know, there are songs that I think are great that others are like, that's horrible. Why do you even like that? But you just have to be confident in yourself for sure, and know that, you know, just focus on the people that love you and love your music and who have been supporting you. I think that's one thing I always like try to focus on for sure, as far as like confidence goes and continuing to move on and pursue music.
That's a really great point, because there are definitely people out there who say that they don't like my music, and I've gotten some mean YouTube comments I just delete and move on. But at the same time, like, if you think about all the big stars, there are people who like them and there are people who don't. And just because we're independent artists, that's no different. And I think from the beginning, going back to kind of what Ed Sheeran said, pushing yourself, it's also developing a thick skin, because you have to be able to take it, and you have to be able to, you know, take a negative comment or bad situation and flip it around and see the positive in it, that it's an opportunity to grow.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you definitely need thick skin and stuff. And I think definitely my skin has gotten thicker over the past few years, I'd say, just because, just because, I've kind of grown to learn. I'm like, okay, this person doesn't like me music, but I'm going to focus on the person the other day who messaged me and told me they loved my song, or that my song meant something to them, because that means so much more than the one negative comment, you know?
Exactly. Yeah. So we definitely had a journey so far with developing our confidence. And something specifically I want to talk about now is the confidence it takes to put out a vulnerable song. And the first time I really felt this was with my latest single, Will I Ever, because that's a song that was really hard to write. It took me a really long time to even finish it, because it was just emotionally difficult for me to write that. And then after that, like gaining the confidence to go to the studio and record it. And then after it was recorded, I was like, I don't think I can put this out. And then when I finally hit that button to submit it for distribution, I was like completely terrified. But I'm happy it's out now, because seeing the response to that song has made me the happiest ever. But it definitely took a lot. And I think what I had to keep reminding myself during that was there are people out there who feel the same way. And if I'm going to be a songwriter, I have to be vulnerable no matter how hard that can be. So I feel like believing in myself and, gaining confidence from my abilities and my story was what I had to do to get through that.
Yeah, no, and I love that song, by the way. It's
Thank you.
beautiful. I love it. Um, I think that's the most difficult thing sometimes is being very vulnerable. Or especially whenever you have a very vulnerable song that you're releasing for other people to hear. Just because, I think as a songwriter, for me, I know I always try to like put my heart on my sleeve. Or there are some songs where it's like while I wrote it, I was like crying at my piano just because I was so in that moment and I was feeling everything I was writing. I think recently last year I released a song called War with Myself, which was a song I released during Mental Health Awareness Month for mental health. That's something I've always struggled with. And I remember just trying to dig up all those feelings and going back to how dark I was and just how lonely and worthless I felt and trying to get all those feelings up. And I was kind of nervous to release it because I was like, wow, this is me putting a song out here, that's with, talking about a very serious and very sensitive topic. But that's actually a song that I've gotten so many, people have just shown so much love for it. Heart of Indie Radio, they're amazing, and they've just shown so much love for that song, and I thank them so much for that. I had a girl actually from my high school who reached out to me and told me that song meant so much to her because she knew exactly, she felt what I was saying. And that was incredible. I think that's another thing as far as kind of confidence wise is whenever someone tells me, they're like, man, I feel that. I feel what you wrote. That is amazing because I think too, it brings confidence to you as a writer that you can find that connection with people. I think too, it's just great to know that you're not the only one who feels that way too.
Wow. I'm just absorbing everything you just said. Yeah, thank you so much for opening up about all of that. And I think what you said there at the end, we all need that validation, especially with a song as personal as the one you were just talking about. Because, Will I Ever is a song that I felt really lonely too. And, War with Myself is definitely one for you that it was difficult for you to write. But hearing people say that they know what you're going through or they know how you feel just makes it all worth it, I feel like. And
it does.
It's so incredible. But I think the hardest thing for me with the whole release, and I don't know how you felt when we released War with Myself, but I feel like it hit me super hard during the interview process because I had to relive that in a way I didn't since I wrote the song, and having to not only, have people listen to the song, but actually verbally talk about it in interviews definitely hit me hard. And I remember the week after Will I Ever came out, after that round of interviews, I was just really down and was just not good at all. So that hit me super hard.
Yeah. No. I think especially after releasing War with Myself, I mean, I think in a way I was excited to release it because I knew it had to do with a topic that, people that a lot of people support and it affects everybody. But yeah, I mean, I think with any song I release, I'm always so nervous because, that's me. It's almost kind of like a diary. It's almost okay, if I were to give someone a diary that I wrote, it'd be a song, So it's almost like them taking a look into my life, and sometimes it's not you share that with everybody all the time, but with music, sometimes you do.
I completely love how you brought up Diary because my album is literally called Dear Diary. Like, that's literally the exact same way I look at my songs. And, I think it's like really cool though because at the same time, like, it's scary, but anybody all over the world can hear it and connect to it, and I think those people are not as, they don't know you as well. People all around the world don't know you as close as, the people in your life do. So I feel like I'm more nervous about the people in my life, my friends and family. But I feel like I am serving a purpose by putting out those songs because, like you said, there are people who will reach out and say how they connected to it. And I think those compliments and those kind of notes of reassurance definitely help my confidence. And, after Will I Ever, I feel much more confident to put out my album because that was the first big piece of vulnerability for me. And I knew I made it through that, so I can make it through more.
Yeah, and that's a great way to look at it too. It's, because I think for a while, I mean, I've been writing music for like since I was like 12 or whatever, but I didn't start releasing till just like few like many years after that, I guess. And it was a confidence thing because I was so scared. I think, it's scary to put your heart on your sleeve and like make it available to the world. It's kind of scary. But I think after I released, like, after you release one song and you see how it does, and then, you're like, okay, that wasn't as bad. And then you keep releasing more music and more people just keep showing their love for your music. And it makes it all like worth it, and it definitely builds up that confidence to like keep releasing music.
Exactly. And the other thing I've tried to keep in mind was, not necessarily comparing release to release because some are going to hit more than others. And I feel like we always have to remember why we're doing this, like why we're releasing music, why we're writing music. It's for us, but it's for everybody else too. And if one song does better than another, that doesn't mean that the song that didn't do as well isn't a good song. It's just, like you said earlier, music is subjective and all these songs mean something to us, but different people are going to connect more with one song over another. So,
Oh yeah, no. I mean, there's even, I'm sure like if you look at like one of your favorite artists, there are certain songs on like their albums that like some you like more than others. That's just kind of how it is.
exactly. Yeah, so we talked about releasing songs. So now let's talk a little bit about performing. So I know you've talked a lot about how you've performed over the years. I personally just played my first actual gig like last weekend.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
Congratulations though.
thank
That's
you.
a big thing. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
thanks. Well, I released my debut single Into Focus right before COVID, which just wiped out all of my scheduled shows from like 2020 until now. So I wasn't able to. So I finally was able to do that. But so you have so much more experience than I do. So can you share a little bit about your whole journey of gaining confidence while performing?
Yeah. I think, like I said earlier about the whole when I was 13, that whole thing, shoots your confidence. But I think definitely, it's always scary when you're like performing in front of people because it's like, okay, all eyes are on you. But I think for me, it's kind of like the more and more I perform, the more and more easier it gets. Like, I kind of look at myself now whenever I go to play a gig and I'm like, okay, yeah, let's do this. Like, set up, get out the guitar, get out the set list, and like I play and I'm just myself. And it's almost like, it's such a great feeling. And then once I'm done, I'm like, okay, wow, I did that. But like, I mean, a few years ago, I would be completely nervous, honestly. And sometimes like wanting to even just like cancel just because I didn't have that confidence. But it definitely is like a gradual thing. And I think it's something that the more and more you do it, the more and more easier it gets, for sure.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense. And so I'm actually a classically trained musician. I did piano in college, and I played piano ever since I was like 10. And so I've done a ton of recitals and things like that for classical piano, which is completely different than like performing acoustic pop or country. It's completely different. But I feel like with that background that I have, like I definitely wasn't as nervous when I was performing my first gig because I had the experience of the pressure of playing a Mozart sonata for
Oh
grading.
yeah.
And so like so I feel like it's different, but it's also more scary in the way that I'm performing my personal vulnerable songs rather than a Mozart sonata. But I definitely feel like when I was in college though, my performance anxiety was terrible. And before that, when I did recitals, I wasn't as nervous, but being surrounded by other, musicians who were going to school for music, I just felt super intimidated. But pushing through that and making it out of that, I feel like now performing my own music is different, but I feel like I have some confidence stemming off of my whole experiences as a classical musician.
Oh yeah, no, for sure. And like you were saying, sometimes I think too, in a way, I get more anxious whenever I'm performing in front of people I know because I feel like that, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like
exactly.
you're just like you want. I think too, it's just because it's like, especially when my family comes to see me, I want to do a good job. So, and I know they're my family; they'll love me no matter what. And they've been so supportive of me doing music, and I'm so grateful for that. So, but yeah, I always get nervous, honestly, playing. I get more nervous playing in front of people I know than I don't know. And I never thought it would be like that, but I think it's because like people I don't know, I'm like, well, most likely we'll never see them again. So it's like if they don't like it, then, that's that. But yeah, and then I think too in front of other musicians sometimes too. Like you were saying, you get kind of that anxiety just because you're just like, oh, well, like are they, because they know what you're doing and they do what you do. So you're just like, oh, hopefully I do this like well and everything.
Right. Exactly. And I feel like the way that I've found to be more confident in whatever performance I'm doing is being prepared, rehearsing, practicing. It's the same thing as a presentation. So, for
Oh
all of you guys
yeah.
listening who aren't musicians, you've done presentations in school. So, if you rehearse, if you, practice your presentation with the slides and, have your talking points, have your note cards, like if you rehearse it, you're going to get up in front of the class and nail it. But if you don't, if you wait till the last minute and don't rehearse your presentation, you're not going to do good and you're going to be all anxious and you're not going to feel confident. So it's the same thing. Like I always try to, rehearse, practice, so I know what I'm doing.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, for sure. Especially, whenever I do like set lists, I always like try to add new songs. But I mean, there are some songs where it's like, if they're like newer or I haven't practiced them as much, it's like, okay, like, I'm don't have the confidence to play that one. And of course that sometimes is the one that my parents want me to play, but I'm just like, Mom, no. Like it's not ready yet. Like I promise next time. But yeah, for sure. I think definitely practicing is such an important thing when it comes to gaining confidence for performing because the more you practice, you just feel more comfortable with the songs and you feel more comfortable. So even though you're going to be playing in front of other people, you yourself know you're like, okay, I've practiced. I know this song like the back of my hand. I can do this. And
Exactly.
yeah, so definitely practice is important. So
It definitely is. And even like I've noticed, like I've done a ton of live streams over the past year on Instagram and Facebook and stuff. And that's a way to practice too. You're not in front of people physically, but if you have a show coming up and there's songs you want to play that you haven't played for anybody yet, just do an Instagram live. Like I think that's a great way to gain confidence.
oh yeah, no, that's actually a great idea. I never even thought about like doing that like an Instagram live as a way to like practice. It's actually a great idea
There you go for your next show.
for my next show. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, so we covered releasing music and performing music. So let's talk a little bit about networking in the industry, because that takes a lot of confidence. For me, I feel like the people I have relationships with already, it's so much easier to pitch a song for airplay or a review or an interview. But with the newer ones, like, I feel like research is so important, because if you try to talk to somebody who you don't know anything about, you're not going to feel confident about reaching out to them. But if you know a little bit about them, what they do, then it's easier to kind of reach out in a way that's personal to them and make that connection happen.
Oh yeah, no, that's a great way to look at it. Anytime you meet people and it's very kind of, I was always scared to kind of reach out to people in the industry, just because I'm like, oh my gosh, like, I think it had a lot to do with confidence. I'm like, am I really good enough to like be reaching out to them? Starts from there. But I think definitely, like you said, being personable, and even too, a lot of the times, even if you become, good friends with someone in the industry, a lot of times they might have other connections and they can even kind of help. Networking, I think, is a lot about just, finding people who, you can be comfortable with, and you build these connections on, and then you guys can like embrace, or like kind of share your connections too, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so a great example for that is Jess, who does the Fierce and Fabulous Revolution blog over in the UK, was the first one to ever give me a review for Into Focus. And that was like a huge confidence boost for me, because I was like, wow, I got my first review. But then after that, I just personally didn't have the confidence still to reach out. It was one of those things where it was such a high, but then after a couple days it faded, and I was like, yeah, this is probably a one-time thing. But then the year later, when I released my Christmas song, just messaged me and was like, hey, Linda, who does Voice of a Woman over in Ireland, is looking for music for her Christmas special. Your song's really good. Why don't you send it over? And I'm sitting here thinking, I've never gotten airplay in my life. Like, I'm not good enough to be on a radio show. This is not going to work. But Jess was like, yeah, it's really good. Like, give it a shot. You never know. So I emailed it to Linda, and she was the first one to ever play me. Like, she loved it. She played it. And I was like, oh my God. And that was definitely a turning point for me, because Linda is such an angel, and she's continued to support me. And now the whole UK is like just so loving and supportive, because Jess and Linda had connections that, I got to know. And so I feel like her playing my song was definitely one of the biggest moments in my whole career so far. And it definitely gave me confidence for networking and moving forward.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think too, whenever I did like kind of like a first interview thing, I remember I was like so nervous, because I think too, you always have that idea like, oh man, it'd be so cool to be interviewed for like my music. But then once it happens, you're like, wait, am I actually like, can I do this? My first like real interview, I think, was with Heart of Indie, because they reached out to me about War With Myself last year, and they wanted to talk to me more about it. From then on, they have continued to support my music, and they continue to share my music. And that's amazing how I have, that connection now. And it kind of helps me find more confidence to connect with other people in the industry, for sure.
Exactly. Yeah, well, our timer went off, but let's just wrap this up a little bit here. So, I completely agree. Like, my first interview was with Graham Barnes, who does Country Bells, and I was like so nervous. And like, after I got off, like, it was over Skype, and somehow, like, you know how the Skype video calls like usually save? Well, I don't know like how he had it, but like it only saved for him. So I like wanted to listen back after, but couldn't. So I had to wait until it aired, and it was like on a radio station too over there, and I was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
But it wasn't bad. Like, I was actually like proud of myself. But like, actually, after getting that first one, I was like, oh cool. And then I was like, all right, I can do more. And I've done so many interviews in the past like 3 months that I like lost track now. But it's like been super fun. And it was like after that first boost of confidence, like being, given the opportunity to do an interview, now like I get more comfortable with them. And like you said, Heart of Indie, I've done two with Heart of Indie, and Both of them have been with Eddie. Love him. He's the nicest on this planet.
Yes, he is so nice. Like, oh my gosh, just the sweetest person. Because I think I've done 2 interviews, I believe, with them. And I think one was with Emmy and one was with Eddie. But like, he is just so nice. And even like after I released Only Loved, he like messaged me. He's like, I just want to let you know this song is great. And he just went on and on about how great it was and everything. He's like, just continue going. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. So like, yeah. And, you know, people definitely like that. People just reaching out to you and telling you your music means something is definitely a confident booster.
Yeah, and I think like what it all comes down to, this whole conversation, is the people who care will show you that they care and that they love your music, and those are the people you need to focus on. Don't focus on negative comments or people who tell you to your face they don't like your performance or your song, because they don't matter at the end of the day. And the handful of people out there who love our music help us continue to be confident and continue down this incredible road and this journey. And I think that's really, really important.
Yeah, no, I completely agree.
Well, this has been fabulous. But before we go, Matteson, what are some final overall thoughts you would like to share about confidence?
I think as far as confidence goes for music, and I think honestly for anything in general, doing anything, just you kind of have to dive right in. And like the more you do something, the more you kind of slowly become more confident in yourself and your ability to do it. I think too, just for me, I think too, what always keeps me to keep going and to building my confidence is just knowing that, okay, I'm like going for something because I would rather know what can happen and know what I can do instead of me always wondering what could have been.
I absolutely love that. And that is a great little, piece of advice to remember. You'll never know if you don't try. And music is definitely one of those things, because I love music so much. I know you love music so much that if we would give up on this, years later, we could be thinking, where would I be now if I didn't give up? And nobody wants to be in that position. We have a passion for music, and continuing to believe in ourselves and build that confidence is going to allow us to keep making incredible music. So Matteson, thank you so, so much again for being on. This has been fantastic. Where can you share with the listeners where they can find you on social media and listen to your music?
Yeah, they can actually, I have all my social links on my website, www.mattesongregory.com. There's a site that has all my different socials. On TikTok, you can find me at Matteson Gregory, Instagram, Matteson Gregory, pretty much on Facebook, all different socials. And music, same way, on all streaming platforms.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being on. How did you like it?
I loved it. Yeah, this was great. It actually flew by very fast. So
It definitely
that
did.
was great. We got a lot of, it was just really cool to be able to talk to somebody about confidence. I think that's a big thing that people struggle with, especially in this industry with music in general,
Yeah. Well, this was fantastic, and I wouldn't have wanted to talk about confidence with anybody else because you shared so many incredible insights.
Oh, thank you.
It was fabulous having you. So thank you so much. Listeners, thank you so much for listening, and until next time, stay right on track.